What's up, everyone? Cody from the John Fund here, and we are here with a very special video for Tarkir Dragonstorm. I am lucky enough to be friends with an artist here in Magic the Gathering that everyone soon will know their name, if not already. It's Leon Tukker, everybody. Leon, what's up, buddy? How are you?
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Cody. That's really great. Very happy to be here.
Awesome, awesome. We are here because Leon has done a ton of work in Magic as of late, especially with Tarkir Dragonstorm. And what really kind of kicked this off is Leon did Soul Ring, everybody, which is crazy. All right, and we're gonna get into this later in the video, but this inspired me to want to interview Leon and talk about his work as an artist in Magic, as well as mainly the work of Tarkir Dragonstorm, because it's such an amazing set. It is one that is near and dear to me, not just because I'm an ambassador for it, which is amazing and an awesome opportunity. So thank you, Wizards, for that. But because I love this set, I love this plane. Who doesn't love dragons, right? Like that's like the coolest thing in Magic is big old dragons, right? So this is an amazing opportunity. So thank you, Leon, for doing this first off and taking time out of your day to discuss this with me.
Oh, well, yeah. So, well, again, thank you so much for having me. And I do agree, Tarkir, from what I've seen from the set so far, it's been amazing. I played a pre-con battle yesterday, Commander. It's such a smashing set. I'm super excited for this.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a super successful set. I know, at least in my area here where I live, every single pre-release was sold out, like all of them, every like
Mhm.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Like it's been gangbusters, selling like crazy. Everyone really loves this.
Right?
Who would
Yeah.
have thought, man, like Magic looking like Magic would be successful, right? Like,
Totally. Even in the Netherlands, I think they all of the LGSs they are short on stock right now. I've heard some friends that they weren't able to get some of the commander decks because they were so popular. So that's really cool to hear.
yeah, I know my local ones definitely sold out of like the Teamer and the Sultai ones like super
Yeah.
quick and had to wait
Hmm.
for another shipment to come in to start selling
Yep.
them again. But yeah, it's an incredible set, and I'm super excited to talk a little bit more about it. So
Hmm.
we just basically have like a set list of questions here. I'm going to interview Leon here and kind of just pick his brain as an artist, get to know him a little bit more, so that you guys can get to know him a little bit more as well in the work that he's done with Magic, in particular Tarkir Dragonstorm. So that way you guys can know a bit more about this incredible person and artist and friend. So with that being said, let's go ahead into our question. So question number one for you, buddy. How did you first get into art and illustration?
Yeah, so I think it all started when, as a kid, I used to play a lot with Lego. I was fortunate enough to have parents who could afford that stuff, especially
Hmm.
now it's really expensive.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I think that sparked some kind of creativity. I was always a bit of a jumpy, like ADHD kid, but Lego could really get me quiet. And honestly, like my whole office is full of Lego right now. You should really see it. It's pretty crazy. So yeah, so lately I've been lucky enough to pick up that hobby of building again. But I think
Nice.
that's where it all started. And then from a very young age, I started painting Warhammer figurines.
Mm.
They had this Lord of the Rings set, and my dad is like a huge Lord of the Rings fan. So we were in France, and we were at the local miniature store, and he bought us, my brother and I, some of these like starter kits. And I think I started painting these figurines since when I was maybe 8 or 9. It was super early.
Hmm.
And then after that, it kind of progressed when I went to school, and a buddy of mine, he was using 3D software,
Hmm.
and it instantly felt like that combination of playing with Lego and also painting figurines. It was the perfect combination of that. But then I was doing it on my computer, and suddenly I was able to create my own models, to build my own worlds, and it slowly progressed. At that time, I didn't have an inkling of that there was an industry and I could turn this into a job. I didn't have any idea. I was not. I played a lot of video games. I didn't know how they were made. I wasn't even aware of that. And then suddenly, this was also the time when social media became a thing. So I was just sharing my little spaceships that I was modeling. I was sharing it to show my mom that I wasn't living under a bridge, basically. That's kind of the story. And then I slowly started to pick up a following, and people who liked seeing my work, and that's how it kind of started progressing. And then I ended up going to art school. Did a couple of courses there. I followed some online courses in environment design. I was always kind of leaning towards objects and buildings and architecture and landscapes, and not necessarily so much to to characters, even though I was painting a lot of Warhammer figurines, for me it felt easier to make objects and big buildings, big cityscapes. And I'm still kind of doing that. I'm slowly leaning more into character work, especially now that I'm working with Magic. But I would describe myself as an environment artist and not necessarily a character artist.
Right on. Yeah, I think that's very true. Like looking at a lot of your work, obviously it's a lot of big cityscapes. Like I think like Kamigawa Neon Dynasty is like a great example. Like you did a lot of stuff where it was a city skyline or like an aerial view of the city from high up, and not a lot of character work. It's more of the macro view versus the micro view, right? And so I think your love of Lego and love of like structure and architecture really shines through with your art. Kind of a quick question off of that then, like why not go into architecture then, I guess? Like, because if you love structures and building, like was it just simply because you like to create the art of it versus the actual structure, or how did that difference come about for you?
That's super interesting, because I studied a lot of architecture, but I never went to school for it. For me, games, because I was such an avid gamer back then, that kind of spoke more to me. I never considered going to architecture. I did a couple of architecture assignments for architecture offices, but honestly, going into the nitty gritty and technical stuff, that never really spoke to me. So I really like the big buildings, but having to figure out how they work, I'm just not
the math and the physics of it all, right?
Like I was never really great at learning stuff and technical aspects, but I did kind of have like a vivid how do you say that, like I really like imagining things, and that came from building with Legos, and that's what I love about working for Magic. Like, so when I create a robot, it doesn't have to actually work. It really needs to look cool on the card. But, but we don't have to animate it unless we're working for the animation department, of course.
So then, kind of leaning off of that, then obviously you mentioned Lego as being like a big pivotal thing for you growing up. What other than that would you say is like one of your biggest influences as far as the art you create? Whether it's like another property, it's a person, another artist. Like what do you really draw inspiration from in your day to day with art?
Yeah, so I think. So there's a lot of artists that I'm very inspired of, but I don't tend to look at other arts as much. What I do like to look at is things that inspire other artists. So what I'm really inspired by, for example, is anything that is on our Earth but that looks otherworldly. So look at the way that mushrooms are formed, or coral reefs, for example, like those crazy shapes that we can find just on our planet. They can really inspire you to create like new architectural buildings or monsters even. So that's probably like my biggest inspiration at this point. And also, of course, I grew up with watching sci-fi movies. My dad is a big sci-fi nerd, so that sparked the imagination. Yeah. So, but when I do my own personal projects, right now I'm more inspired by different architectural styles. So for example, say brutalism, or how do you say that, there's a lot. The names escape me right now, but like modern architects like Santiago Calatrava or Zaha Hadid, they really inspire me. But also the more classical art styles like neoclassicism and what the Greeks were building back then.
Yeah, like the Pantheon,
Art Nouveau,
like
Art Nouveau, Art Deco. That really inspires me to kind of create like little worlds or civilizations around these specific architecture styles.
I guess based off that, then, like, yeah, I mean, you're right. I like an interesting point to touch on there. Like, there are things on Earth that are otherworldly, right? Like, I always think of like deep sea creatures, for example. The way they evolve because they don't have direct sunlight all that much. Like, they look so foreign and alien to us. And like mushrooms is another great example. So that's awesome. I really like that as a way to kind of draw inspiration from what we see around us. And I think for a lot of us, it's tough to like think about that stuff because we usually live in a city, right? And our cities are so sterile, for lack of a better word, right? It's concrete jungles, it's buildings, it's rigid structures, right? We don't really get out and literally touch grass, as the kids say. Like, we don't get there and really do that a lot. So like, I think it's a really cool thing to kind of step back and look at what's potentially around us and see that
Mhm.
there is just so much that you can draw inspiration from. So I
Oh
really
yeah,
like
yeah.
that as an answer. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it
Um,
can be found anywhere. So if I went to Thailand a couple of years ago, and the way they work with ornaments over there, it's crazy compared to what we do in the US or in Europe, for example. And also, I
mhm,
just visited Luxembourg. It's like a very small country close to the Netherlands, and
mhm.
their capital city is built in between a ravine. It's weird. It's like a gigantic fortress on top of a hill surrounded
Yeah,
by ravines, just connected with bridges. It's, even though it's a city, it's still super inspiring because they worked with restrictions, right? They,
right.
okay, this is a mountainous area, how are we gonna build a city on that? Well, they did, apparently.
Yeah, they built a moat around it more or less,
Yep.
and yeah, there we
Yeah.
go. That's awesome. All right, so our next question here is, what was the first piece of work you did for Wizards of the Coast, and what was that process like getting started
Hmm.
work with them?
I really like you asking that because it kind of touches on what you mentioned early, because you mentioned Neon Kamigawa.
Hmm.
This was actually the first assignment I worked on. So um, yeah, I was kind of just doing my thing. I worked in animation a little bit and in video games, and then I got an email from Zach Stella, who is an art director with
Hmm.
Wizards, and he asked me if I could do concept art for Neon Kamigawa, and they specifically mentioned the city, the Boseu city, right? Boseu,
Hmm.
who endorsed the big bonsai tree.
Hmm.
So this, I think this was still early development for Neon Kamigawa, or it was late in the development. I'm not sure because this was my first assignment. I don't know how far they progressed. But back then, I was well, not famous, but I was kind of well known for doing these gigantic cityscapes and these top-down views. And back
Hmm.
then, this was kind of the only thing I was doing back then. So I really found my niche in the whole creative industry. And because of that, I was kind of well known for that. So Wizards reached out to me to do that thing specifically. They wanted me to design a very big cityscape with that gigantic tree in the middle. Um, so that was kind of my in to Wizards. And right now, I really branched out a lot. So I've Wizards allowed me to explore like other areas, and they luckily they trusted me with doing that as well. Because before working with Wizards, I was kind of limited to that niche. But luckily, that was kind of my my chance to work for Magic. Um, and yeah, so this was definitely the first assignment that I had, and I of course didn't know what to expect because I was a Magic player. I started playing since I was 14, so
Hmm.
this was a dream come true.
Oh yeah.
Uh, yeah, but then being able to work for them, I was so surprised. So of course I really worked hard to, yeah, to get a cool end result. And then they just kept coming back, and my next assignment was doing being part of the concept development team for the Brothers War, and
Mm.
this is where things really took off. And I think even before that, or right around the same time, I did a assignment for early development for Phyrexia OLB1.
Hmm.
So I had to design Alice Norn's Palace. I think this
Oh
was
wow.
this was I think the second assignment that I got, and then they just kept coming back. So I was always surprised when I checked my emails, like, oh, they're back again. Okay, well, don't mind if I do. Yeah, and I just kept taking on any assignment, and yeah, I'm still doing that. I think I've been at it for I think 4.5 years already. So it's been pretty
Wow.
crazy. Yeah.
That's super cool. Yeah, I remember my first exposure to you like in Magic was Cityscape Leveler, the piece of art behind you on
Yeah.
your wall there.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That was the first piece that I remember seeing. Like, dude, whoa, this is really cool art. Like, who did this? And because I
Oh,
love the
really?
art. Like, that's a huge thing for me. Is like the
That's
art of
dope.
Magic is what makes me love it. Like, I
Hmm.
love the game. I love the settings, obviously, but
Yeah.
it was the art that drew me. I think a lot of us into the game was the art. And I remember seeing that and being like, who did this, and I looked at him like, Leon Tucker, like, who's this guy? Like, I don't like, because like I'm thinking, you know, somebody that I've seen before maybe, and I'm like, this dude's really good. Like, this is awesome. And then, you know, lo and behold, here we are all these years later, right now, and now we're buddies and stuff. Like, kind of a crazy how that world works
Well,
out.
thank you so much for saying that.
Yeah, no, for real. Like, it was super cool. So it makes a lot of sense for Brothers of War to be what they really tapped you with, because that's a lot of like mechanical stuff, right? A lot of like structures and a lot of, you know, like robotics and stuff like that, just given the nature of it, like as a bit heavy artifact set. So I think it was perfect for them to really tap you for that, because that is a lot of what you do is like the structural, you know, almost like artifice level, you know, stuff. So
yeah, for sure. And you know, big robots are kind of like buildings anyway, so that was a good thing for me to lean into. And also what really made the set cool is that the Brothers were such a historic set, right? So it also involved a bunch of different civilizations and city states, and they needed to revamp the architecture for that as well. So I was super happy to work on that. For example, they have the Falaji Empire. That's Mishra teams up with them, or seeks refuge with them. And they are very kind of like Middle East inspired civilization. That was really cool to design. And also Urza's Tower, of course, where he kind of makes up his new robot ideas. Yeah, such an interesting set to work on. And then also working on cards. You mentioned the Cityscape Leveler, this is the backdrop that I got from Magic on Amsterdam. Yeah, I took it home. It was so big that it couldn't fit in my car. So it went all the way from the back of the back trunk to the front, and I had to keep it up with my head while I was driving the car, because it was kind of it kind of bent forward, so I had to sit upright and just make sure that it
well, and you're a tall guy
face.
too. You're like what, 6'3", 6'4", or something like that.
I think something. I need to look it up, because of course we use the metric system. Yeah.
You're a tall guy. For those that don't know, Leon is perhaps the tallest one at a con usually.
Well, it's funny, because whenever I meet an art director for Wizards, they're always surprised, because they usually meet me when I'm behind a desk. So yeah, 6'3". I think 6'3" sounds about right.
Yeah.
Honestly, no, it's exactly right. It's 6'3". Yeah.
I was gonna say if I had to guess, I'd say you're right in that zone there. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I love that art. It was like my first exposure to you as an artist, and yeah, like super stoked to see how far you've come with this. So kind of leaning into our next question here, you mentioned that you came from the video game industry prior to really working with Magic. So that being said, how differently do you have to approach your creation process within those settings? So are you still doing like video game stuff? And if so, like, how does that differ? Oh, you're not. Okay, not anymore. So like, how differently do you have to approach your style with Magic coming from the video game world?
Okay, so the biggest difference, and we already kind of touched on that, is that for Magic, of course, it's a print product. So the end result is always a flat illustration on a card. So when you design a robot, so you kind of do have to think about how it works, but you don't have to actually animate, right? So there's a lot of creative freedom that comes with that. So we can focus on making it really look cool and make the composition of the image really interesting and make it really speak to players. But it doesn't have to animate. It doesn't have to fire its weapons. I think it goes the same for characters. So there's a couple of limitations that we don't have to worry about. The only limitation that we have to worry about is it's being printed on a very small card. So we have to worry about how, like, does the audience, can it recognize instantly what is happening on the card? So the composition needs to be super clear. We need to instantly see what the story is about, what the character is doing, what the city architecture is like, literally what the story is on the card. Because like when we're playing, we usually just, we pick the card from our deck, we just play it, and the other player instantly needs to see, okay, this is a big monster that breathes fire, so that probably has to do something with the mechanics of the card. So that's definitely the limitation. But honestly, I have to say there's a lot more creative freedom when it comes to working for a card game like Magic the Gathering. I worked with a very big game company. I won't mention it, so I had to design a tower for them, and I think I had at least like 15 or 20 revisions. I must have designed 300 or 400 different
Oh my
iterations of the
gosh.
same tower.
Ugh.
And oh man, it was, yeah, it's so hard for me because what I really love about working for Magic, especially in the concept art team, is that there are so many different projects that are going on at the same time.
Mhm.
So I get to jump from designing little cute homes for bunnies to live in for Bloomborough, and then instantly go to designing doorknobs and creepy chairs for Duskmorn, for example. And
Yeah,
for me, like I tend to get, well, not bored, but a little bit burned out when I work on the same project for too long. So
sure.
being
Yeah.
able to jump from project to project is really works with the way that I like to work. Um, yeah, so even like concept art is probably something that I would prefer even more than to draw cards.
Mhm.
Because being able to do 5 or 6 images a day for Tarkir, for example, it just gives you that little dopamine hit, right? Every time you finish an image, I think, yes, I did that. And with cards, you typically spend about 3 or 4 or 5 days on a card, and then you're like, oh, do I have to detail this more? So yeah.
Yeah,
But
that's
some
awesome.
people are way better. That's probably the reason why I haven't worked traditionally as much for a card,
Mhm.
because I'm slowly progressing into it. This is kind of a tangent, but that has to do with the development of AI, and it's pretty crazy. And I
Yeah,
think there's a real value to painting on paper or on canvas, for example.
absolutely.
That's why,
100%.
yeah, that's why in the US the people really like it when you do a sketch on the back of a card or you do an artist proof, something like that.
Yeah, you're starting to
Yeah.
kind of tap into that world now, buddy, aren't you?
Yes, yeah. Oh, absolutely. But this is because of MagicCon in the US, because in the Netherlands they don't have much of a collector's culture like you have in the
Mhm.
US. So it's definitely because of MagicCon I started leaning more into drawing digitally, drawing traditionally as opposed to digitally.
Absolutely, yeah. My first artist proof actually is from you, so thank you for that. Yeah,
Oh, that's right.
that very first one. So I am very happy to have a Leon Tucker
It was a
artist proof.
basic land, right?
Basic Swamp, yeah, yeah,
Basic Swamp
exactly.
from
Yeah,
from
super, super happy to have that. Yeah, absolutely, love that. Okay, so speaking of MagicCons here in the U.S., MagicCon Chicago, you did a really cool interview with my buddy Steven Cop and Evan
Mhm.
Fong talking about
Yeah,
your guys' different approaches and styles because she's very much character design, you're very
yeah.
much structural landscape design. And in
Mhm.
that interview, you mentioned something that I'm still like blown away by, and that you work in VR,
I
which is
do.
crazy. So that being said, how does that process look like going from the 3D VR world to a two-dimensional flat piece of
Yeah.
art for a card?
Yeah, so we briefly mentioned how I really like to play with Lego as a kid, and then I kind of leaned into using 3D software and becoming a 3D artist. But
Hmm.
but then again, drawing cards, it's definitely like a painting approach or a 2D approach.
Hmm.
But at some point, I found a way to kind of combine my 3D knowledge with a more, yeah, like a 2D background, so painting skills or compositional skills or all these classical art theory. So I started combining the two together. So honestly, I've never been really a pure 2D artist. I am not a really good draftsman. I can't really draw that well because I think more three-dimensionally, because that's the first thing that I leaned into when I started doing this kind of creative work.
Hmm.
But the 3D software it's pretty tedious. There's a lot of hotkeys that you need to learn. Um, there's a lot of buttons you need to push, and I was kind of limited. We also touched on this briefly. I was kind of limited to create these big cityscape with giant tall buildings. And
Hmm.
then at some point I was at a creative arts festival and they had some presentations, and there was an artist called Jama Yurabayev. He worked on an insane amount of Hollywood productions,
Hmm.
and he demonstrated using a VR headset to create art. I'm just gonna quickly grab my headset. It's right
Yeah,
here.
go for it.
Right. So yeah, so he was using an Oculus Rift, more or less like this one.
Hmm.
And so what it does is you put it on your head, and you're literally inside your creation space. So all of the hotkeys and all of the tedious button pushing that I previously had to worry about, they're all gone. So the only things that I have is the headset and the space that I'm creating it, and a controller like this.
Hmm.
So this is just like a a couple of buttons, and what really spoke to me is that the creation, you're kind of sculpting. It's like sculpting clay, but
Yeah.
digitally.
Mhm.
And it was so intuitive to me because I was already, when I was designing images, I was already thinking in 3D. So progressing into VR was like a very natural step to do. So basically, what happens is that you have the headset on your head and you have these two controllers, and you're basically making motions. Like you're just making hand motions, and with that you're creating. Yeah, you're literally creating building blocks. I have some courses of this online as well that cover that. But being able to use VR, it kind of made me progress from the more cityscape and building approach into a more organic approach. So all
Mhm.
of a sudden, I was also able to design robots or even characters or trees or whatever, flowers. Um, so this made my scope of what I was able to create, it made it much bigger. And right now I use VR for everything. So this cityscape leveler over here
Mhm.
was actually sculpted in VR before
Wow.
kind of transferring that to my regular 3D software, and then light it and make a cool composition, and then you transfer that into Photoshop to turn it into a final painting. And honestly, even when I'm doing more traditional work, I tend to just make a quick mock-up in VR just to help me go along, because it just feels more natural to me. So
That's
if
really
you
cool.
yeah, so if you compare to Evan, for example, she starts with a blank canvas and then she sketches a character, and then when she has something that she really likes, she progresses from that. She adds textures, materials, colors, lighting. And for
Mhm.
me, I make all those decisions in 3D because that's just something that works for me. So, and I've been using this from the get-go. I think just my first assignment with Wizards was when I wasn't using a VR yet. So
Mhm.
just with the Neon Kamigawa stuff, um, so this is 5 years ago or 4.5 years ago. I wasn't using it back then, but as soon as I finished that assignment, I bought my headset and I started playing with that, which
Wow.
was interesting because you have to get used to being in a VR space because
Right.
you're wearing a screen on your head. It's very almost like dystopia kind of like,
Yeah.
it's
It's like
like
some
a
weird, like,
weird
future,
form
like,
of.
Black Mirror thing,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly, because that's what people typically tend to think about. Oh, you're just playing video games, or you're just watching weird stuff on there. But yeah, for me,
Right.
I just use it to to do creative work.
That's super cool. So then, like, within that VR world, what scale are you working at? I mean, like, Cityscape Leveler is a huge, massive, like, structure as far as the art's
Hmm.
concerned. So, like,
Yeah.
when you're building, are you building things at a certain scale, or are you trying to really, like, build it to, like, what the city would feel like if you were walking through
Exactly.
it?
So this is a super good question because this all depends on what my goal is.
Hmm.
So with the cityscape leveler, I know that we're not gonna have a zoomed in shot of his head, right, of his
Right.
face, because when you do a magic assignment, I always do like quick sketches on paper first, of course, to get some ideation going.
Sure.
So and when you get an assignment for wizards, um, they always say what the card is supposed to look like.
Hmm.
They never say how it's supposed to mechanically work, or how strong it's going to be,
Hmm.
or even its rarity. Like they don't mention if it's going to be a mythic or a rare or uncommon.
Hmm.
So they just say, okay, Leon, for this assignment, we need you to create a very big robot. It's a skyscraper height robot, and it's supposed to it's about to demolish a city, basically. It's about to literally level a city. So I already know, okay, so we're going to look at this robot from pretty far away.
Hmm.
So I know that the face doesn't need as much detail. I just need to focus on the mood of the scene and like the overall kind of anatomy of the creature. But
Hmm.
then if you compare it to creating like a little building for a bunny to live in, I need to worry about a whole set of different details because a bunny is this big and the cityscape level is a literal walking skyscraper.
Hmm.
Um, and then I also used VR to design doorknobs and chairs.
Yeah.
So yeah, so according to the scope, I know how much detail I need to work in. And then
Okay.
in VR space itself, I can just zoom in and zoom out as far as I want to. So that doesn't really matter.
That's really cool. See, like as I was always envision rather, like with Neon Dynasty, like the Boseiju, like the cityscape of Kamigawa, like just being
Hmm.
able to walk through your own piece of art, like that's so cool of a thing to
Yeah,
me that you can just kind of like almost literally walk through Kamigawa that you're building
absolutely.
there.
Yeah, and that really helps you get a feeling of how big something is supposed to be. Because yeah, like you said, you can literally walk around in your creation. You can just grab it and look at it and see. Oh, do I need some detail on the face? Do I need something there? And
Yeah.
that makes you really grasp how how it's going to look like on a card, or yeah, how it will feel. So definitely, I'm probably there's probably more with artists that work for Magic that use 3D, but for me, I came from a 3D background, so it's just a part of my design process. Honestly, I wouldn't be able to paint a card from scratch anymore because I'm so, well, not stuck, but I'm so used to the way I'm working.
Hmm.
So like I said, even if I would do a traditional piece, I would probably start with a VR model first to see how big it feels, and then you use that as a reference to work off of.
Very cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really unique thing. Like I had never thought of using VR like that. So when you mentioned that in
Hmm.
Chicago, it stuck with me, and it was like
Yeah.
I've gotta ask that question, and get more into there.
Hmm.
So that's really cool.
Yeah.
So kind of touching now into Tarkir, kind of getting into the meat of Tarkir here. Soul Ring is arguably the most well-known card in Magic besides Black Lotus. I would make that argument. Like everybody knows Black Lotus, everyone knows Soul Ring these days because Commander is Magic now. For
Yeah.
better or worse, it is the most popular format by a long shot, and it
Hmm.
is what defines the game these days. And Soul Ring is the face card for that. So, that being said, how did it feel to get the assignment to do Soul Ring for Tarkir? I mean, that's huge, dude. You did Soul Ring. That's crazy.
I,
What was that
I
process
am.
like?
I was so excited because I was like, "Huh, me? Okay, come on!" But I don't know. I was approached by Ovidio Cartagena, who I worked with on Duskborn. He was the art director on Duskborn. I think since
Mhm.
then he has moved to the D&D team. But it was, for him, it was probably like an afterthought. He was like, "Hey, Leon, just want to hit you up if you to see if you're interested in doing a Soul Ring." I was like, "Huh? What do you think my answer will be?"
It's so
So yeah.
casual.
Of course, because like yeah, I'm a Magic player, so of course I was super excited from the get go,
Hmm.
and I was able to reference my own concepts that I used for Tarkir Dragonstorm, because of course this new set is all about the Dragonstorms and how all of the clans are dealing with it, and
Hmm.
the Mardu, they are keeping the storms at bay by using this like kind of lightning magic, and they built a perimeter around their cities to keep the storms at bay. So a
Hmm.
Sol Ring was a really interesting approach to use the Mardu and their defense perimeter to do a Sol Ring with that. So I think that's what makes me really excited, because I think it's a very different Sol Ring compared to what we are used to, because normally it's more of like a small object or a portal or anything like that, but it's never been something with a skill this big. So and it kind of leaned into my comfort zone, which is big cityscapes viewed
Right.
from a bird's eye. So this was both the exciting in a way that it's a soaring, and also excited that it's it's my comfort zone, it's my way of working, and it's what made me go into Wizards. So it kind of really came together when doing this card. So yeah, definitely super excited. I think about 5 days ago, I got my Commander precons in the mail. So being able to
Oh,
look at the Sol
nice.
Ring, yeah, that's always very special. Yeah.
That's so cool. I remember during the preview panel for Tarkir Dragonstorm, and they showed the Soul Ring, and I saw the art, and I was like, oh, that's so sick. And then I looked down to see who did it, and I saw your name, and I like, dude, I cheered so loud. I was like, my boy got a Soul Ring. Let's go! Like it was so cool. And like we're in a group chat together with some other of our friends, and like
Yeah.
all of us were going off like Leon, yeah,
Right.
dude, let's
I
go.
honestly, I'm still cheering. Yeah, this is just like, as a Magic fan, as a player, this is such a blessing, or yeah, such a fun thing to do.
Yeah, it's so cool. And you're gonna sign so many soul rings now. Like,
I
I hope
hope
you're
so.
prepared for
Yeah.
that, dude. Like,
Yeah.
if and when you come back to the States for a MagicCon,
Hmm.
you are gonna have so many soul rings to sign and a lot of
Yeah. I'm
APs,
super
I imagine,
excited.
for it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So
that's super cool. With Tarkir, you've mentioned before that you've done a lot of like the kind of concept, like world building type stuff for previous sets, like Neon Dynasty, for example, and
Mhm.
Brothers War. So with Tarkir Dragonstorm, you were tapped to do a lot of the concept and world building for that. So what was that process like for you?
So what makes Tarkir so interesting is that there are 5 super clearly defined clans,
Hmm.
and already knew them. I already love them. Of course, like the color combinations are named after them, so it's
Hmm.
yeah, it's only logical that I was already accustomed with most of the clans. And the challenge with this set is how did Tarkir deal with the fraction invasion. Like
Hmm.
it's all about the like how all of the planes dealt with the aftermath of Alice Norn invading yeah their their precious lands. And it's interesting because there was already a lot of reference from the previous Tarkir, like Khans of Tarkir. So for
Hmm.
example, the Abzan, they were already very clearly defined in terms of architecture. But
Hmm.
there were also some other clans like the Sultai and the Temur who didn't have a specific architecture style that was set in stone. Um, while the Jeskai, they already had their temples, of course, so they're already pretty defined. So for some of the clans, it was definitely revisiting their already clearly defined architecture styles, and for
Hmm.
the other clans, it was coming up with new stuff. And then luckily, when you're working in a concept art team, there's already a lot being thought out by the writers and the art directors, so there's a ton of reference to work off of. So definitely with some clans we had more restrictions, and with some clans we had more creative freedom. So take the Sultai, for example. They were dealing with their continent or their country being mostly flooded
Hmm.
with water. So it was all about dealing, with the aftermath from that. And then the Abzan, they were dealing with the approaching dragon storms. So we had to think about how they would erect these gigantic walls to keep the storms at bay.
Hmm.
And then, since we just mentioned the Sol Ring, the Mardu horde, they are of course nomadic people. They are
Hmm.
traveling all around the country, and they they do create cities, but they're only temporary. So they needed to figure out a way how to keep their cities safe from these dragon storms. So that's when that Sol Ring happened, right? They have this perimeter of
Hmm.
lightning magic keeping the dragon storms at bay, and then they wait for it to quiet down so they can travel more. So
Very cool.
definitely the clans of Tarkir are also vastly different. They're also all rooted in civilizations that we already know.
Hmm.
So there was a lot of real world reference that we could delve into to create these clans.
So then I guess after all of that concept work and all of this stuff with Tarkir Dragonstorm, is there something in particular that you would say you're most proud of, like a particular piece or a specific like
Hmm.
concept or idea that you came about that you really like kind of, hang your hat on and are super proud of?
I think just the set overall, because I was involved in designing homes and buildings and castles and cities for all of the clans. I think I'm just super excited for the set overall, because in previous projects, I think I definitely was involved, but not with all of the clans or all the species. For example, with
Hmm.
Bloomborough, I did not do much work for the lizards, for example, or for the rats. Oh no, I did for the rats actually. But anyway, but for the clans, I feel like I have contributed to the architecture of all of the clans, and that just makes me very happy. Because when I look at, I didn't do much cards. I only did 4, but it's it makes me so happy to see my concepts and my sketches being referenced on almost all of the cards. That's so cool to see.
Yeah.
So even though it's work that you do behind the screen, because like a lot of people don't know that I'm involved. They know me from the cards, right? But they don't know that I'm involved with some of the concept development as well.
Hmm.
Um, so for me, seeing my work being referenced on so many cards, that's just so cool. So there's nothing specific that I'm very happy with, but just the overall look and feel. The walls of the Abzan or that arena that the Mardu use. Those are all things that were a lot of fun to design, and it felt like I could really put my own creativity or my own signature into it. Yeah.
So talking about the clans here, we've mentioned them a lot and the different influences for them. I know before you have said publicly that the clan that you like to play the most in Paper Magic is Jeskai. But does that align with what you, Leon Tukker, the person, would choose to be? Like if you had to pick to live with a clan or be part of a certain clan, what would it be, and why, if it's different from what you play?
It's so cool because we're gonna need to think about out loud with this one because I haven't thought about this. So definitely,
sure.
I'm definitely an Izzet player because I like people to dislike me. so adding white to that makes it arguably worse. But yeah, I definitely like to play color combinations that involve red and blue. So both Temur and Jeskai really kind of spoke to me. Another color combination I really like is Grixis. I have a Sauron deck that I really like. But yeah, most of them, they involve red and blue. But the Jeskai, I am not a monk, and I could never be a monk because being silent for more than half an hour will end me. So what clan I would be? Definitely not Jeskai. So let's scratch that off the list.
Okay.
I am not much of a traveler either. So the Mardu would probably not for me. Be not for me too.
Okay.
So then we go to Temur. I think they do, like in this set, they do have their city that they like to live in, or their village. And I don't, even though it's super cold, it does seem very cozy the way that they live. So Temur is definitely an option. Let's go to Saltai. I really love visiting Thailand. I have family there, so that's amazing. So their culture is really cool, and since the Saltai are kind of close to to that region in Asia, it's something that really speaks to me. Ceremonially speaking, not so much, because I don't believe in anything.
Right.
So yeah, I had to go to church until I was 17, and this is something that I would not like to.
Right. Not big on the afterlife aspects, right?
Exactly. The afterlife aspect, not so much. Also ceremonies. I've been engaged to my girlfriend for 5 years, and we never got around to marrying. So that's probably a ceremony that we're also skipping.
There you go.
So what is left? Abzan is nice because I do like living in a city. I do like feeling safe and having like a like a hub that I can work out of. Okay, so right now it's a toss-up between Abzan and Temur. Yeah, honestly, I'm a bit of a coward, right? I like hiding behind walls for sure, especially when there's scary dragon storms approaching. So even though Abzan is not necessarily my color combination, I do play a Hobbit food deck, which is Abzan colored, which I really like. So for this one, let's go for Abzan. But if it comes to the clans that I like playing with the most, it's definitely Temur or Jeskai.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
All right, I can kind of agree with that. So I love to play Mardu. I'm a clan captain representative of the team ambassadors for this set of the Mardu clan. That's my play style. I like being super aggressive and like really aggro and fast. But my personal life, I'm very calculated with what I do. I like routine. I also don't like to constantly be on the move all that much. So I probably, similarly to you, would probably choose something like the Abzan.
Right.
Monk life is not the life for me.
Exactly.
I couldn't do that. And while the Sultai are very cool, much like you, I'm not big on those kind of ceremonial type things. It's not my vibe. So I would say probably either like the Temur or the Abzan. I guess the Abzan is probably the closest to like what we have as like modern, like our version of society, right?
Yeah,
because
for
they
sure.
do have
Because they have
structures
their
and stuff
cities,
like that. So it'd be the easiest translation, but something about having really cool big stompy dragons in Temur does sound really
Yes,
appealing too.
exactly.
But very cool. All right, I like that a lot. We got
And
there. So
yeah,
Abzan at home, but out in the streets there, you're rocking Jeskai on paper magic
oh, for sure.
and being a person that's causing salt at the table, right, with your spell slinging. So
Yes, yes.
super cool. Okay. So now kind of our last couple questions that we have here, and these are a little bit like bigger, broader questions that aren't just magic related, but
Mhm.
this one here is actually magic related. So if you could do work for a revisit to any plane in Magic's history that you haven't worked with already,
Ooh.
what would it be and why? So you get to pick whatever set from Magic's history
That's a
that you
good.
have not worked on yet that you would just
Uh-huh.
love a chance to do.
Okay, so Avishkar is probably so previously it was of course called something different. So they changed it to Avishkar with Aether Drift. So I have worked on that plane already, but it's definitely in terms of architecture is my favorite plane because of all of the gold filigree and all of the crazy
Mm-hmm.
detailing. It's that's probably my favorite plane to design. Also Ravnica with their I mean the entire plane is a city. Like that
Yeah.
plane is literally made for me.
It's
Basically.
literally Europe is
Yeah.
all it is. Like Ravnica is
It's
Europe,
kind of Europe
basically.
without the highways. It's
Yeah.
yeah, and no airports. Yeah, no, it's Avaskar because it's kind of a modern city, especially in Aether Drift. They had these. I did the land cycle right for
Right.
Avaskar, so that was another dream project of mine, being able to design the whole city from top down and then zooming in on specific regions of that city.
Mm-hmm.
That was really cool to do. So yeah, it's definitely a toss up between one or two of those sets. I really
Okay.
wonder what plane you would pick.
Oh, me personally, for me, Innistrad.
Oh yeah.
I love Halloween.
Hmm.
I here in the States, obviously, it's a big deal. Halloween is huge.
That's right. Yeah.
And I was born 10 days before Halloween, so
Hmm.
I'm very much like about that time of year, that
Oh, I see.
aesthetic and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, in my background, you can see it, but I have a tiny little jack-o'-lantern
I
on my
see.
shelf
Yeah.
there. So like I always have some sort of like spooky, like Halloween horror movie type
Hmm.
stuff going on. So Innistrad is probably my favorite plane. So if I ever got a chance to work on like an Innistrad set in any capacity, that
Hmm.
would probably be like number one for me.
That's dope.
If not that, because I know we just like did a remastered version and we've been
Yeah.
there recently with like
Hmm.
Crimson Hunt and or Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow rather.
Yeah.
If not that, I would say, honestly, probably Ravnica too, because
Yeah.
that was a huge set for me as a player. I've only started playing Magic really in like 2016,
Hmm.
2017.
Oh yeah.
And so Guilds of Ravnica Allegiance, were huge for me. And
Yeah.
I just love the art style of it and seeing the cities and the different seasons, like weather wise, like seeing fall
Absolutely.
in Ravnica is gorgeous, or
Yeah,
summer in
it's
Ravnica.
fantastic. And also like the politically the way that the whole city is divided up into guilds, that I
Mhm.
don't know, it's so smart. And I mean there's a reason that we named the color combinations after the Ravnica guilds, of course. But
Right. It's
yeah, it's
almost like
really
Wizards is
cool.
really good at what they do, like they
Yeah, yeah.
really know what they're doing.
Now it's nice because just like with the clans, I think the clans in Tarkir are also a good example that it mm, it makes you want to identify with one of the guilds or one of the clans of Tarkir, just like we did just now. Where would you most likely want to live? For example, my partner, she would most definitely be either Timur or Mardu because like she really likes traveling. Well, she's an avid horse rider as well, so that
Okay.
helps.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
so definitely, yeah, that would be something for her. But for me, I just like I said, I like to hide behind the city wall, and
Yeah, or in
then
this case, your desk.
yeah, well, and then when we visit the guilds of Ravnica, I would probably be Izzet because I like coming up with new things. I like to hide away in my little laboratory. In this case, it's my home office where I draw stuff and I do VR. And then also when it comes to playstyle, that also really matched my my background. There is a test online that matches your that kind of finds your magic color combinations based on like 150 questions. It's super extensive. And then whenever I do the test, they always say either Grixis or Jeskai. So when when I'm
nice.
having a bad day, it's Grixis. When I'm having a good day, it's Jeskai.
Yeah, on your worst days, your Nicol Bolas. On your best days, your
Exactly.
Narset. Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
And
Love
and
that.
and and what about you? Like, if it comes to Ravnica clans, what would you be?
So play style wise, I lean heavily into Rakdos or Golgari.
Oh yeah,
Jund,
yeah,
I'm the Jund fund, right? Like the Jund
exactly. Yeah,
colors. So like marrying those two together is like my
yeah.
favorite thing. It's my favorite play style. I like playing aristocrat style decks that like
Mm-hmm.
lean into sacrifice and graveyard shenanigans.
Sweet.
But me, like as a person, I am not chaotic. I have so little red in me. It's crazy. I
Oh.
am not an impulse guy. I am
Mm-hmm.
very calculated with all of my stuff. Honestly, like personally, I probably lean more into either like Selesnya
Oh yeah, yeah,
or like Azorius, but I don't like the very like dominating like controlling aspect
yeah.
of
The law aspect.
Azorius.
Yeah,
Like yeah,
exactly.
yeah, I'm not big on like that part of it, like control.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd probably be more like on the Selesnya, like everybody, like we're part of a global community, like
Yeah.
our differences are what make us great, it's
Uh-huh.
not like a big thing to like separate us. So I'd probably be more into the Selesnya aspect, because also like I really like their concept art and their like style and their design,
Mm-hmm.
because they
Oh
do
yeah, me too.
a lot of like bringing of nature into their architecture and into their clothing design and
Yeah,
stuff. And I've
yeah.
always loved their imageries. There's one, I think it's like Night of the Conclave, I think, something like that, from that
Mm-hmm.
set, where it's this elven looking person on a horseback, and they're like going through this forest, and it's during fall, and all the colors are there for autumnal season, and it just
Oh
looks
yeah.
really cool. And it's just a really 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 cool thing. And so I probably go Selesnya,
That's
honestly, as
cool.
far as like my personal style. So
Yeah.
all right, so coming into our last question here, and we're gonna save the biggest question for last here, and this is kind of a big,
Uh-oh.
like, make you think here, Leon, as a person. So what do you want your lasting legacy in the world of art and magic to be? Have you even thought about that
Oh
far ahead?
gosh. Yeah. So honestly, I'm not very big on planning ahead, but I have always said if I am able to work for Magic for the rest of my career, I would probably do it because I'm so involved with the community, and
Hmm.
I felt so welcomed by the people in the community, by you, by Allison, by
Hmm.
everyone I met in the US. And this is something that I haven't experienced yet. I come from a sports background. I used to be a track and field athlete,
Okay.
and yeah, and things are, I mean, they're nice people, but it's very different to compare to the Magic community, and that they
Hmm.
just welcome everyone around. So honestly, if I can keep working for Magic for the upcoming years, I would be very happy to do so. And it doesn't matter if I get to do more soul rings. Yes, please let me. I mean, being able to do a soul ring is already such an achievement. But
Yeah.
I don't tend to think in goals, because even when I started doing art, I wasn't thinking about I want to work in Hollywood in 5 years, or I want to be this person or that person. I just kept taking any assignment that they would throw at me, and I'm just very happy to keep doing that for the upcoming years. And in terms of lasting legacy, I don't know. I would just love to be more involved with the community, and to make more friends. I think that's the thing that makes me most happy. Um, Last year I was at Magic on Vegas. I was able to speak on stage, talking about designing Duskmorn. That's also, yeah, that was such a big goal for me as well.
Hmm.
Even though I haven't planned it just casually happened. But I really like talking in front of an audience. I really love talking about my work and about playing Magic. So being able to combine, doing art for Magic and also a bit of public speaking, that was such a cool thing to do. Also, like, doing this with you, it's fantastic. Getting to know more people, and kind of putting myself out there. That's really cool.
That's awesome. I love that answer. Yeah, like kind of living in the moment, like
Hmm.
letting things come as they do, and not getting too hung up on the possibilities, just kind of being open to what's out there. Because I
Yeah.
think for me personally, that's what's been so great about this community is, you know, I started this stuff just doing box opening videos. I would open a booster box and I threw it up on YouTube just randomly because I liked that stuff, I liked watching it. And then here we are, you know, 4 or 5 years later, and now, you know, I've been able to go to Europe. Like I went to the Netherlands last year, and you know, for Magic and stuff, and that's just crazy to me. So being open to stuff, I think has been such a huge boost to me, and I know you've been seeing kind of the same, you know, prospects of that. So that's amazing. I love that answer. Well, thank you so much, Leon, for doing this, taking time out of your busy schedule to do this with me here. I really, really appreciate it. For the viewers, I hope you guys really appreciated this and loved this interview as well. Hopefully you guys learned a lot, not just about Leon, obviously, as an artist, but kind of the whole thing with, you know, how this stuff comes about. Because as Magic players, we usually just see the final product. We don't really get to talk too much about the process of. So getting a kind of look behind the curtain to a degree, and seeing all the work that goes into us. And like Leon said, it's not just 1 or 2 people. It's a whole team of people that do this. And they're very dedicated people, and they're very hardworking people, and they're very talented people as well. I really can't emphasize that enough. And Leon is a shining example of that here. So be sure to support the artists in the game, actual artists. We're going to talk on this for a quick second. No more AI in Magic, guys. Come on, let's get rid of this here. As content creators, as you know, people that buy and support the game, support actual artists, living, breathing people who make living, breathing art, because that is what makes humanity and our culture so cool, is that we get to have art like this, and people create things from their mind and with their hands. So support that stuff there. Go out and, you know, buy some art prints, get some APs, you know, get some signatures, stuff like that, or just buy the cards and really enjoy them as well with your friends, and connect with them with your family. That's the most important part, is the gathering, right? It's not just Magic, it's Magic the Gathering for a reason. So be sure to pick up Tarkir Dragonstorm if you haven't already, whether it be the singles, a set booster box, or whatever it might be for you. Go out there and enjoy it. It's a phenomenal set. Leon did a ton of work on it, you know, both from behind the scenes and with his individual cards as well. And it's just a home run set, and I'm super, super happy it exists. Thank you again, Leon. I really appreciate it. Where can the people follow you? Where can they support you? This is your time to shine. The floor is yours, buddy.
All right. Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It really means a lot, you know, being able to talk to you. Also, meeting you last year was, has been so amazing. It's just like a series of coincidences. I got into Magic coincidentally. I met you coincidentally through our mutual friend Daniel, right? It's just you bump into people, and crazy stuff happens, and that's, I don't know, it's just so surprising, you know, being to work in this field, meeting content creators and meeting players and meeting everyone. It's been great. So yeah, you can find me on Instagram. It's leon.tucker, I think, at Instagram, something like that. You can probably find me also at Scryfall, stuff like that. Please, if you have any individual questions, you can always reach out to me, and I'd be happy to answer any question that you might have. And
Fantastic.
Again, Cody, thank you so much for having me. That really means a lot. And
absolutely, man. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you all for watching. Links are going to be in the comments section or in the description down below. So you can follow Leon on all of his stuff there. And just, be sure to look out for more stuff from Leon, because I'm sure we're going to see a whole heck of a lot more of him in the future. Thanks for watching, everybody. Be sure to follow me at the Jun Fun on all relevant social media. We'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.